Good morning, everyone. It's 9:30, so we'll get started. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Welcome to the April NorCal APCO Chapter meeting here in Napa. For those of you that are here, thanks for being here. For those of you online, we miss you and look forward to seeing you next time. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, my name is Carl Grover. I'm with the City of Roseville. I'm the president-elect, filling in for Tristan today, who is in Texas for some Kenwood training. So some logistics to get out of the way for those that aren't aware. Bathrooms are down the hall. Refreshments behind you. For lunch today, we have Italian food coming in, and we'll be eating outside on the porch. Our agenda for today is Carbyne is our commercial sponsor, which will start after our chapter business. And then we'll get into the keynote speech with Greg Glenn from Comba about defending the spectrum and best practices with in-building coverage, helping to provide coverage where it's needed and not harm where it's not. Okay, so we will get into introductions. We'll go around the room. If you are a commercial partner, please take a couple minutes to tell us all about your product, your solution, what is of interest to the group. So we'll start here.
Marshall Briggs, Senior Comtech with Marin County.
Jeff Davis, Comtech, Contra Costa County Fire.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Casey Link. I'm with Carbyne. Carbyne's emergency communication platform, specifically call handling, and then various other platforms that we'll talk about later today. Go back here.
Michael Proscia, City and County of San Francisco, Senior Comtech Infrastructure side. Yes, also on the board of directors. Yeah, sorry.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Brunner, dispatch manager for the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, and also one of your directors.
Gordon Bozeman, local radio tech, Sacramento County.
Kurt Gary, Sac County Radio Tech.
Good morning, Larry Smith, City of Stockton.
Susie Rivera, retired from City of Folsom.
Hi, Shelley McMahon with Cal OES, telecom manager, and also one of your board of directors.
Jonathan Pierce, I'm with City and County San Francisco Radio Shop.
Ken Bernard, Curly Valley Communications, in building ERCS.
Hi, I'm Greg Glenn. I kind of wear two hats. I work for Comba Telecom as well as CSI Telecommunications, which is an engineering firm that does, well, many of you probably in this room does your engineering for your radio networks. I'm going to be your keynote speaker for today, so I'll burn your ears off later.
Barry Driver, the sales group. We're manufacturers reps for anything from hardline cable, stuff for your dispatch centers if you need chairs. We have stuff as well we have a 43-inch curved monitor, probably one of the only ones currently at this time for dispatch. But we have an assortment of products, so I'll just try to keep in touch with you guys.
Good morning. Kathy Conley, Vision Communications, two-way radio dealer, sales, service, rentals, installations.
Good morning. John Chapman, California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're the exclusive dealer of fishing licenses, hunting licenses. We hand out tickets regularly for people who don't have them, so please go fishing and bring your license.
Hi, I'm Manny Vieira. I'm your chapter CCAM. Northern California chapter is the premier chapter in the United States for National APCO. I'm also the co-chair for this year's first California State Conference, and also a member of the Commercial Advisory Council for National APCO.
Jim Lencioni, the County of Placer, and your chapter PIO.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. We'll get into committee reports. So first up, membership with Susie.
Thank you very much, Carl. We have a total of 807 members, so we are back over 800 once again. Yes, so we have City of Fresno, and Armin Carlosian, and then the following are from Elk Grove Police Department, and that's Sarah Albright, Jacqueline Cormain, Ryan Elmore, Cheyenne Gallegos, Casey Hasna, Brian Huseman, Catherine Lobato, Gianna Rosales, Kristen Tharp, Brandy Velarde, and Sierra Wallace. We have a Liam Dillingham from Mono County. We have a Terry Thomason from Vacaville Police Department, and a Bethany Eakin from Yellow County Communications Agency. And again, 807 members, so we're over 800 once again.
Thank you, Susie. Shelley to report on the Awards and Recognition Committee.
Good morning, everybody. This year we've received, across the board, 7 different categories. We've received nominations for all of them. The selection committee has gone over the submittals, and we will be making our selections this week. And to celebrate their accomplishments, we have a member awards banquet cruise. It's going to be held May 17th at the Sacramento River City Queen. So prices are to be determined, but we look forward to celebrating their accomplishments on this cruise. We're going to have food, entertainment, and the award ceremony. So if you have any questions, we have flyers over there for the times. It's also on our website. You can take a look at that, and we will update that with the prices once we get all of the numbers tallied and figured out. So if you have any questions, contact me, grab one of these flyers, or go to our website. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Shelley. Manny, do you want to provide a report on commercial activities and conference committee?
All right, let's start off with our monthly meetings. I have a couple openings for sponsorship still for our monthly meetings, so please just let me know. And I'm also now taking applications for 2025 monthly meetings. So just give me a call, email, and I can take care of you on that. When it comes to the cruise, I'm still looking for commercial sponsor. Anybody that wants to sponsor this cruise, please contact me. That would be a nice venue. I believe we're expecting 50 plus people. Is that close? So I think it's going to be really good for us. It's the first time. Well, not the first time. We've tried to do this a couple times. We tried one in Monterey. It was really well attended. But I think this is going to be really a tremendous thing. And we actually have people that we're going to give awards to this time. Last, we're going to hold a state conference for the first time. We've been doing our vendor showcase for probably 30 years, both us and CPRA. We've come together to do a state conference. It's going to be September 30th, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. 2-day event for vendors, training for PSAP, for radio, for anything and everything. We have a call for papers. So if you have an idea that you want to do something at this show, please contact us.
Very good. Thank you, Manny. Jim, did you have a PIO update? Okay. All right, so I'll cover briefly a few of the other committees. For the Legislative Committee, there is a 911 Goes to Sacramento event that's coming up at the Capitol. If you are interested in that, it's a 2-day event, April 30th through May 1st. The chapter is participating in that in a joint partnership with both CalNINA and Southern California APCO. A quick update on frequency engineering and advisory from John Lemon. Just a reminder to make sure that your FCC license has your updated email address or distribution list that points to maybe not necessarily a specific person, but to a generic email address that's then forwarded to others. There have been too many examples over the last several months of licenses being expired and agencies having to scramble because they just simply didn't have their license information up to date with the FCC. So go to ULS, check your licenses, make sure that your proper contact info is in there. All right, finance and budget report from Jackie Andrews. Let's see, for March, we had an income of $15,334.50. Expenses, $8,015.13, for a total net income in March of $7,319.37. We do have a lot of activity in both the expense and revenue from the California APCO show that Manny was talking about. Other than that, normal, typical expenses and income on a monthly basis. If anyone's interested in details, I have that report. So our March 1st starting balance was $178,778.35, and our ending March balance on March 31st was $186,097.72. And the last committee update is programs. Manny mentioned this a little bit, but in terms of the short-term view, we will not have a normal chapter meeting in May. That awards banquet that was mentioned is taking place of our normal chapter meeting. Frequency coordination will be done solely via Zoom. So our next formal chapter meeting is June 13th, somewhere in the Bay Area. Looks like either Palo Alto or Morgan Hill. We're working to finalize that. And then in July, it'll be in Roseville. And then moving into August, it'll be another non-chapter meeting, Zoom-only frequency coordination due to the International APCO Conference. I believe that's all we had for committee reports. Board members, anything else to add? Very good, thank you. All right, so we'll take a 15-minute networking break. Next up on the agenda is Carbyne, our commercial sponsor, who will be discussing cloud-based solutions for mission-critical communications. So we'll see you back at 10. Thank you.
Hello? Sorry. That's all right, Jim. I got it. So there. So for those that want to look up information about the state conference, it's calapco.org. calapco.org. There's registration for vendors and actually registration for everyone else. So you can register now. We're going to start promoting it at the end of the month for non-vendors. So, but it is open now for registration. And in that calapco.org, there's a listing of all the factories that have signed up already, and there's about 35.
All right, everyone, we're going to resume. Our 10 o'clock space is Carbyne with Casey Link to give us some info on cloud-based solutions, how they benefit public safety communications, and then we'll have another break and we'll go into our keynote. So thank you very much, Casey.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl. Everyone hear me? Yep. Great. Thanks, everyone. I'm Casey with Carbyne. A lot of new faces in here. Some of you may have heard of Carbyne in the past, seen us at APCO, NINA's, various other events, but today I want to talk a little bit about who Carbyne is, what we do, and how we could potentially benefit your emergency communications. So Carbyne is an emergency communications technology company. A little bit about our history. Amir, that's the guy in the center there, was at a beach in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and he had gotten robbed. He called, I believe it's 112, the equivalent of 911 in Israel, something like that, don't quote me on it. And the police had trouble locating them. And he became frustrated because he's like, I literally had an Uber drop me off here and I had DoorDash deliver food to this exact beach location, but I can't get a cop to my location where I'm at. And there's just that big gap in technology and then in situational awareness as well. So that's when Amir and a couple of his buddies started developing the product. How can we bridge this gap in technology, specifically in the emergency communication space? So for about 4 years, they were in the development phase trying to find that product market fit. At one point, we had an app. We are not an app-based platform. We don't have an app. But then in 2019, they moved the company from Israel to New York City once they had found kind of their product market fit, specifically in their call handling solution and their over-the-top solution, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. In 2019, we signed up our first customer here in the U.S., New Orleans parish. And from there, we've been expanding our footprint here in the U.S. as well as globally. We're currently live in 5 countries: Israel, Colombia, Mexico, U.S., and the Ukraine. And we have about our Apex product, which is our call handling platform, live in about 22 states here in the U.S. Just so we're all on the same page here, our specific call handling platform, Apex, is currently going through the Cal OES lab for validation. And then once we get approval from the state, we will be able to hopefully go to market here in California with that. But we have other platforms as well. And a couple other stats. We've raised about $150 million. Globally, we're about 175 employees. Our primary R&D and our engineers and development group is based out of Israel, but then about 70 of us are here in the U.S., based out of New York. So what do we do? So when they were going through that product market fit, trying to figure out, why are there gaps in emergency communication, and what are the pain points? Here are the kind of the 6 pillars that they identified. One is staffing shortages. Anyone who's worked in a PSAP or in this space knows it's hard to recruit and retain. So we have products that incorporate AI to alleviate some of those staffing shortages. Inaccurate call location, even when Annie and Allie information may not come through, we're able to get information from that caller on their mobile device to get device location. Limited situational awareness, we're able to collect and take live video feed, share that with the call taker, and then as well as pass that on to the emergency responders as well. Deteriorating citizen safety. There are times when callers may call in or text in, whatever it is, but silence is of the essence. We think of domestic disturbance issues, so we have silent chat capability. Outdated software, we're a cloud native solution. We are built on the cloud for the cloud, so whatever application you're running for Carbyne is the most up to date. Just like your cell phone, when you get the little notification saying you're ready for a software upgrade, we push those software upgrades to your device. Log off, log back in, and you're on the latest version that we have. And then security vulnerabilities. We are hosted on the AWS GovCloud. So we, the ransomware attacks and cyber attacks, we keep those out of the PSAP, and that's not a concern for you guys. And then for the results that we've been able to get with our current customers, 98% of all calls are answered in less than 15 seconds with an average call answer time of 2 seconds. And then average call length, because we're able to ingest more situational awareness to the call taker, we have an average call time of like roughly 2.8 minutes. The statistic I like down there is we've partnered with a handful of Department of Transportation and highway patrols throughout the U.S. to reduce their incident response time from 27 minutes all the way down to less than 4 minutes. And we've been able to do that by, rather than having a highway patrol respond to an accident, maybe a minor accident, we are able to send them a link. They're able to take video of the accident, and then a desk trooper who's maybe on light duty or not actually out in the field is able to file that report without the need to send an actual individual to collect the report. And then for our call handling solution, we've seen a 11% reduction in time to dispatch and 20% faster call handling despite 30% more calls. So like I said, we're not just call handling, we do more than that. Apex, that is our call handling solution, which we are going through the Cal OES lab to get certification on as we speak. Hopefully we get the thumbs up any day now. Universe is our over-the-top solution, so that can work with your existing call handling platform. It just adds on much of the functionality and features that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. Carbyne Connect, that is a B2B or B2G application where citizens can sign up for a profile, enter in critical medical conditions or emergency contacts should they call 911. That's going to auto-populate in your call taker screen, and then they can use that and forward that on to responders as well. ECAS, Emergency Communications as a Service, what we can do is we can embed our technologies into your CAD, so you can have that live video, that transcription, that translation embedded into the CAD. And then Bridge Desk is our command and control platform, offering to track your various assets that you may have in the field, and then as well as layer on various weather data, IoT devices, street cameras, et cetera, and give you that single pane of view in your command center. Like I said, this is all built on the cloud. It's a cloud native platform. We weren't ever a hosted solution where we migrated and now we're cloud hosted. We are cloud native. What this does is it minimizes your on-prem equipment, the blinking lights in the back room. We don't have that. All we have is like a 3-inch digi device. But other than that, it's all hosted on the AWS GovCloud. What that cloud native does is it, as I mentioned, it gives you that future proofing. Whenever we push out our updates, which is quarterly, you log off, log back in, and you're going to have the latest version of our software. And also it allows portability. I could do a complete call handling solution from my laptop here, just as I could at your PSAP, just as if you have secondary PSAPs, you can pick up and move. CapEx to OpEx, we're not upfront costs, we're a licensing model. And then agile event coverage. So what we have, because we're hosted on AWS GovCloud, we have near infinite scalability. For any of you that were at CalNINA, one of the keynotes there was on the Aurora, Colorado shooter. And what they saw was those local PSAPs were flooded with calls, and that call volume, what it did was it caused delays in both their call taking as well as their CAD software. But because we're hosted on the cloud, we have near infinite scalability, and you're not going to see that degradation in your call handling. And then product reliability, we stand by our 5.9 SLA, which has never been breached in our company. And we have that perimeterless security, which keeps those hackers outside of the PSAP, and that removes that concern for you guys. So Apex, like I said, this is our call handling solution. And this features, it's a full call management platform featuring live video, silent messaging, accurate and dynamic call location, call triage where we incorporate AI, and then audio translation and transcription, and that's 2 ways, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. And all this was built on an intuitive user experience. We collected feedback from call takers, dispatchers, what do you guys like, what do you not like, and we built our platform specifically for that. Our platform, when you look at it, is completely customizable to the individual. There's a default screen, but then if you have pop-ups that you want to see or maybe that aren't relevant, you're able to minimize those, expand those, so on and so forth. So the first one is that patented live video. Caller calls in, what we can do is we can push a link to SMS and WhatsApp, and it will ask that individual, I'll show you what this looks like here in a little bit, to show the video of what they're seeing on the scene. And that the caller can show live to the call taker what they're viewing. Now, we do get a lot of questions like, what if we don't want to see it? The default is a blurred screen where that call taker is not going to see that. Should they want to see that, they have the option to view it. They can pass it on to their supervisor, and then ultimately that can be forwarded on either in CAD notes or sent directly to a mobile device of that first responder, whoever's going to the scene itself. Silent messaging. So in addition to text to 911, we also support silent messaging. So once that caller opens up that browser window, that's also a chat pane as well, where we can communicate back and forth with the call taker and the caller without any audible or vibration alerts. So a case in Ohio that we had, a wife was in a domestic abuse situation with her husband. He had a shotgun, and she was able to communicate with the call taker and get the SWAT team in there without alerting the husband that they were on their way. When I say without alerting, no buzzing, no pinging or anything like that. And that was all communicated via that link that we had. Dynamic and accurate call location. So in addition to Annie and Allie information, we're also able to push that link, ask the caller to share their location. And what that's going to do is provide us with device location. So even if they call your admin lines, or maybe not the 911 lines where they don't get that Annie and Allie information, we can ask them to share their device location and we can see precisely where they are. And should that individual be moving, that location is going to track with breadcrumbs, updating every 5 seconds or 10 meters where that individual is moving around. So two-way live audio translation and transcription. Caller calls in, they don't speak English. Predominantly they speak a lot of Spanish here in California. They can speak in their native language. That will transcribe in the window pane what they're saying into English, and then your call taker can speak back in English and it will transcribe back into their native language. So it's going to transcribe in the pane as well as the audio version as well. Currently we support 14 different languages. By the end of Q3 that will be up to 80 different languages. And we're working with PSAPs throughout the US. If there's a specific language or dialect that is spoken in your area, we're able to add that to our services as well. So this is an AI-based ML, machine learning-based platform. So on initial go live with it, it may be a little clunky. We say about 80 to 90% accuracy, but the more you use it, the better it's going to get. We went live with this in New Orleans. Anyone who's been to New Orleans and spoken from someone from New Orleans, you maybe pick up 50% of what they say. And they were like, yeah, the feedback we initially got was like, yeah, it works, it's not great. We came back 30, 60, 90 days later, and it was learning the local dialect that they speak specifically in New Orleans and able to translate and transcribe that both ways, from the caller to the call taker and back to them. So with that being said, I want to share a quick video of what that two-way translation looks like. So this is our Apex platform, what it looks like, what your call takers will see. And what you're going to see here, someone calls in and they start speaking Spanish. It's going to automatically detect that they're speaking Spanish, translate that into English. The call taker will speak English as they normally would, and that will translate back to Spanish to the caller. You're going to see in this pane right here the actual transcription going back and forth between the caller and call taker as well. I'm going to pause it because we don't have audio. There we go.
What's the address of your emergency?
911, ¿cuál es la dirección de su emergencia? Hola, necesito ayuda, por favor. Un hombre robó mi coche.
I will send help. Where are you located?
Te enviaré ayuda. ¿Dónde se encuentra? Gracias, estoy enfrente de la Casa Roja.
What kind of car was it? What did the man look like? What was he wearing?
¿Qué tipo de auto era? ¿Qué aspecto tenía el hombre? ¿Qué llevaba puesto?
Es un coche pequeño. El hombre lleva una camisa negra. Help is on the way.
La ayuda está en camino.
There we go. So that's a quick snippet of what that two-way translation transcription looks like. Just of note, this is not intended to replace your translation lines. This is meant to augment or add to it. It gives you that quicker situational awareness where they can detect that language and hopefully get the response that they need out to the caller themselves. The next thing, I talked a little bit about AI. One of our features that we incorporate AI is what we call call triage. What call triage does is it can set a predetermined length where if you get flooded from a handful of calls all in the same area, i.e. an accident along the interstate, what it will do is it will automatically identify that area, set up a geofence, put all those calls into an automatic queue, where what we're looking for is keywords for individuals that have amplifying information about, in this case, the accident, or were maybe involved in the accident, or have nothing to do with the accident, and they want to get help as quick as possible. So there's a big accident along the highway, passerbys are flying by, everyone and their brother is calling 911. The reality is, majority of those calls are just calling and giving you a heads up, hey, there was an accident on Highway 123 at this mile marker. They don't have any more information. So what this does, it will automatically pick up saying, Napa Valley 911, I'm making that up. Are you calling about the incident at this location? Caller says yes. Do you have amplifying information? No, I do not. I was just passing by to let you know. We are aware of the situation. Please stay on the line if you have any other information, or you can hang up. Or if they call in and they, same thing, calling about this situation, yes I am. Were you involved? Yes I am, I need help. That will automatically put that call to the top of the queue. And then another person may call in, are you calling about the incident at this location? No, I am not. Help, help, I'm having a heart attack. That will put that caller to the top of the queue as well. So those callers that don't have any amplifying information will be put to the bottom of the queue. They're offered to stay online. Or they can simply hang up. Should they hang up before they go through that call tree motion, what they'll do is they will get a text that will be from your specific PSAP, and it will ask them, do you require a callback? If they say no, then it says, thank you for your call, have a great day. If they say yes, it will automatically be put in the abandoned callback queue that they require a callback. So the other AI incorporation that we are incorporating into our platform is AI for admin lines, what we're calling Ivy. We just launched this last week, so I'll kind of talk through it because I haven't really done that yet. So most PSAPs handle admin lines in addition to 911 calls, and this can take 50 to 80% of your actual call volume. But what we have when we call our insurance company, when we call our bank, when we call these big companies, we have that call tree. Calling your bank, I need to speak to the loan department, and it will automatically transfer you to the loan department. The reason we created this was because of staffing shortages. A lot of PSAPs have one individual, multiple individuals dedicated just to admin lines. Community expectations, they call those admin lines, but then there could be flooded with 911 calls, so the admin lines are all put on the wayside and they're on hold for 5, 10, 15 minutes while the emergencies are taken care of. That creates frustration with the citizens. And then multi-vendor complexity. You have animal control, you have waste management, you have all these different departments that your admin lines are funneling into, but the reality is, well, in today's AI world, that you could call in and say, I need to speak to animal control, and it could automatically be routed there without having someone, a call taker at your PSAP, touch that call. So that's why we created Ivy. It's very similar to an AI-based call tree that you have when you call your bank, when you call the hospital, when you call insurance company, whatever it may be, but it's created specifically for PSAPs. And this is all to the benefits for the pain points that I talked about there. So this can be something simple as information requests. What day is trash pickup on 81st Street? Trash pickup is every Monday on 81st Street for recycling, trash, and green waste. No need for a call taker to take that call. Whereas a lot of models now, they need to send them over to waste management and figure that out. This can also be incorporated with text. You could text the number as well, what day is trash pickup, and it could text back for that as well. So we got call routing for that, integrated workflows. So this is all, we would work with the PSAPs to develop these workflows and where they go. And then we also provide analytics on the back end. What calls or departments are utilized most often, what calls take the most time, and then we can develop workflows to try to address those items as well. We've all been frustrated when we call those people and we're just yelling at the phone, speak with a representative, agent, and you're hitting 0 because you don't want to, you know exactly who you want to talk to, but you don't want to talk to a bot. We can configure that in our admin line IV as well, where they can say speak with an agent, speak with a representative, or speak with waste management, and it will automatically route them as well. This is all tailored PSAP to PSAP based on your specific needs that you may have. And then finally, all of this is built with zero trust architecture on the AWS GovCloud, keeping those hackers and ransomware out of your PSAP, out of your emergency communication departments as well. So now what I'll do is I'll do a brief overview of what our platform looks like. And this is our call handling platform, but keep in mind, this also is, these technologies can work with our over-the-top solution, as well as our command and control solutions, our ECAS solution, which is the one that's embedded with a lot of the CADs that we work with as well. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll make a phone call. Gonna mute that so I don't get too many feedback. Call's gonna call in. This is gonna simulate an admin line. I can't call 911. And then what I can do is I can just start talking. I'm gonna make sure that's muted there. And what's gonna happen is that transcription pane that we have is automatically gonna transcribe what I'm saying. So a lot of times people are calling, they're frantic. It's hard to understand what they're saying. And rather than trying to rewind, ask them to speak again and hear what they're gonna say, you're gonna be able to read what that caller is taking. And this is gonna annotate for both the agent as well as the call taker back and forth so you can keep that call flow going. What happened on the caller side was we were automatically pushed an SMS that said PRPC 911. That's gonna be configured, I don't know who that is. That's gonna be configured to your specific PSAP. Napa Valley 911 would like you to share your location. You're gonna click the link. So this is not app-based, it's gonna open up in a web browser. And the first thing it's gonna ask for me to share my location. I'm gonna hit allow, and then this is gonna automatically reorient itself with our device location, as well as open that up in the new map pane of where we're specifically located. Should I take a walk around the block, it's gonna follow me as I go, as long as I maintain that phone connection, and then it's gonna leave those bread trail crumbs as well. The second item it's gonna ask me for is like, do I want to allow access to my camera? Maybe there's a robbery in progress, and I wanna share what's happening in the background. So as you can see there, it showed up in a blurred mode, so your call taker is not gonna see unless they want to see what's happening. Should they want to forward that on to their supervisor, the supervisor is going to have those same permissions. And should they want to paste that into we can create a link, paste that into CAD notes, or push that directly to a mobile device, maybe for that police officer who's responding. But just do that. Should they want to see this, we just click watch live stream. I don't know why that's not, there we go. And then we're going to be able to see what's happening in near real time at the incident. Robbery in progress, car accident, whatever it may be. The caller can take photos, and that's going to be stored in the AWS GovCloud, so you want to go back and look at it. And simultaneously, the call taker can take snapshots of what's happening as well on that scene. Now, if you don't want to see it anymore, You can minimize that. Those aren't working right now for some reason. But you can blur that out and you won't see that at the same time. Silent chat feature. So this is where your text to 911 is going to show up, and just like our two-way transcription and translation, we're able to transcribe text messages as well. So if they text you in Spanish, that can be transcribed to English. You can type back in English and it'll be transcribed into that detected language. Call taker is sending a message to the caller. And then that's going to open up in their browser pane that they have open, "Are you okay?" And then they can text back, "I need help." And that can go back and forth, and that's going to show up in that pane. All of these windows that you're looking at here can be configured to the individual user. So maybe they don't want to see, the reality is the video is not going to be used on every 911 call or every emergency call. So that can be minimized, and only when you need it, you want it taking up that much real estate. Same with your maps. Maybe your default map, you prefer to use your CAD maps and not this one. This one can be minimized. Our default is Google Maps, but should you want to incorporate your Esri maps, you can do that as well. But you can adjust those back and forth. This pane here is all your call information. That one's going to remain the most relevant, the one that you interact with the most, but all those other panes can be minimized, adjusted per the individual user that they have. I'm going to go ahead and end that one, and then I want to show you what's happening on the back end with what we call our control center. Yeah, this one. So on our control center, this is where you're going to be able to upload all your contacts, create groups, your events history. Should you want to go back and review that specific call, review the video, review the pictures, review the translation and transcription, you can do that all within your events history. And this is going to be stored in AWS Cloud to whatever your specific SOP is. Let me find one that's relevant here and has a handful of information. So Jackie made this call on April 10th. I'm going to pull up the report, and it's going to have where the location of the call was, all the attributes of the call, the video recording, you can review that, intelligence pane, so if there were any IoT devices or information that was brought into that call, shot spotter, traffic cameras, etc., that's going to show up in this pane right here. And then your transcription and translation, should that be detected, would show up down there as well. So there we have her brief conversation that she had. Obviously, a lot of times that would need to be exported to PDF and sent out, so you can export to PDF. Obviously, the video won't be able to do that. And that what will be exported as well as the translation and transcription would be both English as well as whatever language was detected. So you can double check that for accuracy as well. In addition to that, we have our analytics features where you can look at what is your historic call volume, who's taking more time, what are our peak times, and really drill into that. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Here are all of your users. You can set individual permissions per user. Obviously supervisors, trainers, trainees, they're going to have different permissions. You can all set that right here. This is your activity log. You can review those past calls. Items that we have here. So if we're running multiple videos at the same time, maybe you have a command center and many people are calling in for an accident and they're all sharing videos at the same time, you can view multiple videos at the same time and increase that situational awareness. Take those relevant videos that are providing the most information and then forward those on to the responders who are responding to the scene. That one's that. Let's go back here. Seat map, maybe you have a large PSAP where a supervisor, you're not able to sit next to your call takers. You can view all of your call workstations as well as the status of those stations, whether they're on a call, on a break, at lunch. If that caller needs help, the individual can raise their hand and the supervisor can drop in to the call. They can barge in, they can take over the call. That can all be done from the seat map. And then video wallboard. And then final one here is our queue status. This comes into play when we have that call triage functionality where you have several calls calling in at the same time. You can see your entire queue and what's happening, as well as how long they've been on hold, how long they've been on the call, etc. That's a quick overview of Carbyne and some of the technologies that we offer. Any questions about any of this? Yes, sir. This as well.
So for the caller,
Yes.
to allow this, so any phone, or does it have to be after a certain year or something like that? I mean, obviously have video and picture taking capability, and then it just pops up and it says allow, and they just hit allow button or something like that?
Any mobile smartphone, yeah. I mean, if you're
Okay.
dialing in from your Motorola Razr, that's probably not going to work.
Yeah, obviously.
But that's a whole nother issue if you're still using that phone. But if it's a mobile phone with a browser-based, I have an Apple, so Safari, Google Chrome, whatever, it will open up in that browser.
Gotcha, and it just automatically knows that because you dialed 911.
So you dial 911, and then they automatically get pushed that SMS message asking to open up the link in their
Gotcha.
browser, and that's pushed to both SMS as well as WhatsApp. We have a customer down on the border in Arizona where a lot of people are coming from the border. They don't have U.S. cell phones, but they operate on WhatsApp, so we're able to communicate with them via WhatsApp.
And then at any point they can like cut that off or allow it again, start, pause.
Yeah, if they close their browser, that will terminate, if they close that browser window, that will terminate the chat and video, or if they terminate the phone call, that will terminate that.
Okay. And then also I was thinking about, okay, there's all this video and pictures and flood of information now coming into dispatch or having to be passed along to people making ops decisions, right? Is there a way for like the dispatcher to like flag a piece of video or a couple pictures, like this is the important relevant information, or is they're looking at maybe 20 video clips or pictures and things like that? This is the stuff that I need to make decisions based on real quick.
So when you're watching that video, if burglary, for example, and it's a good shot of the burglar, you can take a screenshot of that and then forward that specific video to the relevant parties.
Okay. And other thing was on the translation. Is that your guys' translation capabilities, or is that based off of like Google Translate or some other
Good
tech?
question. Many people have tried to build their own translation models. We use AWS, which is the largest translation model.
Okay. And then based on that, that was kind of like, to me, like, I don't know, the scariest thing, because like just one little bit of mistranslation about like, oh, is this person carrying a weapon or something like that could result in ops decisions that, I don't know, get somebody killed or something like that. Is this being used in 911 centers?
Yeah, we
around
have
the
it live
country?
in.
I mean, some translation's better than none, I guess.
And that's what it is.
But at
Like-
the same time, there's a huge possible liability, I would think.
Do you speak any foreign
No,
languages?
I don't.
Okay,
So
I don't
would
either.
rather
So I'm not
someone
gonna-
that really does take that call for me personally, but
It's not meant to replace that individual who speaks Spanish or that translation line. It's intended to get the information quicker, but realizing that it's not 100%, but we're working to get there. And as the model builds itself and learns, it will refine the language model as well.
I could especially see it for those like information 311 type calls or whatever, that would be really useful. So,
Yep.
Okay. That was
Does that answer those questions?
Yeah, that's all my stuff.
Excellent. Any other questions? Yes.
I had a quick question, because we're up in earthquake country over in San Francisco. My question was...
I thought you meant New York.
Well, yeah, down
the
here.
New York earthquake country.
But if we if you lose connection with the cloud, I'm guessing you have a localized like edge router that's there or something that's there that would take over in case of like an emergency. So like if you don't have access to your cloud to store all your information, everything should run seamlessly, I would think, and store a certain amount of information until you're back online.
I've never known, I don't know of a case where AWS GovCloud has gone down and the backups that we have in place wouldn't allow for that. Now, in a doomsday situation, can you say the question again?
Well, so like you said you had a Digi router, right? That would be there, or a Digi that's providing your connection.
That Digi would be more for if you're using like your CAMA interface right now. So theoretically in our NG 911 utopia that we migrate to eventually, that would not be needed.
Gotcha. But as far as the cloud, that's what I was wondering is whatever connection, there's always a single point of failure, but I'm sure you have multiple backups.
So the connection itself, like we're not on the connection piece, we're on just the platform as well, but we would work with whoever those EZNet providers are, and Cal OES and the state are working on that redundancy plan to ensure that you don't have that single point of failure.
Gotcha. But as far as like localized, there's nothing that would keep the system running if you lost that cloud service. I guess that's
not localized, no, because we don't require that local connection.
Okay, cool.
And, yes.
So this is stored, whose data is this basically is my question. So this information comes into the comm center, we have all this video, pictures, everything. So it's that all that data belongs to me.
Correct.
As the holder of the information, and then I ship it out to a patrol car, and the officer downloads it on their local car, and then what happens to it? And my concern is I've shipped it over here, that officer's taken a picture of it or whatever and shipped it to the next officer, and my concern is the evidence that came into the comm center, and then the security of what happens to that digital evidence, and how long does that evidence stay there? Does at some point do we, like I would today take that information into the comm center, put it into what we use, evidence.com, it stores, goes over to the DA's office. Everything has a certain process so that we can verify that. What happens to that once I ship it to an officer? Like, next week, can you go into his patrol car and check out the video? That kind of question.
Yeah, great question. So only you have access to whatever your SOPs are. Only that's who will have access to that information. Carbyne does not have access to it. AWS does not have access to it. As far as the data retention, that's whatever your SOP is as well. And then for going back, who has access to go back and look at that information, that can be configured to whatever your SOP is as well.
So someone has to go physically swipe it from the mobile?
That can all be configured. I guess, how would you do it today?
Well, today we wouldn't transfer this data to a mobile.
I don't
see
have
what I'm
an
saying?
answer.
We don't have this capability today.
Okay.
So tomorrow we're going to put this live in our comm center, and tomorrow I'm going to transfer this video to an officer.
You're asking, can they go back in their text messages and pull up that link again?
Next week, yeah.
No, because the link won't be active. The only way to access that information will be from the control center, where whoever has access to that control center will be able to pull that
So I
report
can make
information.
that link go away.
The link will still be there, but it will just pull up a blank web browser.
That's my question. Thank you.
I did come up with one more question.
Let's hear it.
So what built-in capability would there be, because you're taking in video and pictures and audio too, for real-time AI editing detection?
Valid question. I'm not aware of any real-time AI editing, but that's something that I'm curious about as well.
I missed the beginning of your presentation, so I'm wondering if it can be used as an investigations tool to, let's say, ask for all the 211s in a particular area in a particular time frame.
You would be, if there was a call, video, pictures, transcribed conversation from that call, you would be able to go back into the records and pull all that information from there as well.
So it would find all the events that match that criteria.
Yes, that were all based on the phone call itself. If you went back into, yeah, you could go back into the transcription. Let me see, events history here. So if we go back into our events history, and this could be set to retain whatever your current data retention policy is, or it can be modified per you want, per your request. You'd have that information of how long the call lasted, how long they were on wait, who answered the call, where the call took place from a map perspective. We have the video recording here that we could review. If there were any pictures taken, that would show up in the transcription pane. And then the transcription between the call taker and the caller would show up there as well. And then should you have any connected devices programmed into this? Okay, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
What type of data connection does one need in their comm center to run this?
I don't know the technicalities of the data connection, but I can get that answer for you. Any other questions? Excellent. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'll be up here and happy to connect. And thanks again for having me here today.
All right. Thank you very much, Casey. So we have about 20 minutes until the keynote. So get up, stretch your legs, network a little bit. There's still some coffee and pastries back here. Keynote at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone, we're going to get started. All right, so before we move into the keynote, I did just want to make a quick announcement. The 13th Annual California Mobile Command Center Expo, aka Command Van Rally, is going to be held at the Lodi Grape Festival grounds on May 8th and 9th. If you are interested, there are some flyers in the back with some contact info and more details, or you can see John Aurelius back here in the back of the room. With that, we will get started with our keynote speaker, and Greg Glenn. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all. Do you hear me okay? Good. I want to turn on another mic here. I have a bit of a funny video. I think some of you may have heard this before. Okay, I want to make sure that mic's on. We'll get back in front of the camera here. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Most of the people who know me, they either love me or they hate me. There's not really any in between. My name is Greg Glenn, and I've been doing RF engineering for about 45 years. Built some of the largest 800 meg trunk radio systems in the United States. At one time was a licensee, had 90 sites and 800 channels throughout the state of California and up into Nevada and out into Arizona. I currently kind of wear two hats. I work for a company called Comba, which builds 800 and 700 meg signal boosters. They asked me to come out and work for them when the FCC approached them about manufacturers, shall I say, being more responsible about the use of signal boosters. And today we're going to talk about literally that, the use of signal boosters in buildings to amplify signals. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history, what's going on, and the program that Comba is actually sponsoring. They send me around the United States to speak to licensees. I am basically the licensee liaison. So I'm not trying to sell a product. I'm not trying to convince anybody to use anything. My goal is to put the tools in licensees' hands who allow signal boosters on their radio network. And that starts with the FCC rules, which supersede all fire code. And unfortunately, even in the fire code, it says that all systems must meet 90.219. It's never enforced. And now we have massive interference problems. And people look at me and say, well, we don't hear about this, we don't hear about that. So I'm going to go a little bit off track today because some of you folks here in this room probably know Brent Finster. Is that correct? Used to work for Contra Costa County, has been bounced around. I think he was in the Bahamas, ended up in Stockton, now he's in Douglas County. And he calls me about 4 or 5 weeks ago and said, Greg, I got real bad problems with my radio network in State Line, Nevada. We have police officers that are literally a quarter mile from our repeater site that cannot key up the repeater. And obviously this is not good because State Line can get a little crazy on the weekends. I spent the last 2 days in State Line. And for people who aren't real technical, I'm going to kind of give you a picture. When we design radio systems, as an RF designer, we typically look for a minimum of about a 20 dB signal to noise ratio minimum, and then we want to put a margin on top of that. And the numbers change a little bit, but for the most part, we always want our signals to have about a 20 dB margin over the minimum signal that we need to give you what would call 95% coverage. Now, raise your hands here. On any of your radio networks, from a dispatcher or I don't care who, where is the biggest failure point in any of your communications with your men in the field or men and women in the field? Anybody hazard a guess? What is the highest point of failure?
Where is the worst coverage?
What?
Where is the worst coverage?
Yes, that's correct. Your radio coverage is the #1 failure point in any communication system. Now, maybe 20, 25 years ago, you might say your radios were. Today, believe it or not, I get a lot of people saying, oh, it's the routers, it's the IP-based system. It's not. It's the radio link between that radio in the field and the base station in which it's talking. And Mr. Ruck here and myself and others, we spend oodles amount of time to make sure that whatever system that we design or put in, we put in a margin. We want to give you 95% coverage. Now, if I told you that, oh, your data system has 95% availability, you would look at me and say, well, that's not acceptable. But that's the reality of RF. When we try to go over 95%, we're talking millions and millions of dollars. Well, today, what we have are signal boosters. When we set this up, we set it up to give this approximate, which 20 dB in percent, if you will, equates to 10 dB is 100%, 20 dB is 1,000%. So I basically want, 100 times. So 10 dB is 10 times, 20 dB is 100 times. I want to make sure that in 90% of the area that you actually have 100 times more signal coming from your radios on your uplink, getting in your receiver that you need, because as we walk through a field, like in this building, that signal is going to go up and down very, very rapidly. The higher the frequency, the more what they call the fast fading or relay fading occurs. And so we want to compensate for that in our design. So we want to assure that you have 100 times more signal than the minimum that is required. And that's 20 dB is 100 times. 30 dB is 1,000 times. So basically when we talk about taking it from stuff that we understand in normal math and percentages or a standard multiplication, we talk about a 30 dB margin as being 1,000 times more power than we need to actually get the job done. Now, let's take that in reverse. If I degrade my system by 30 dB, what I have done is reduced its ability to receive by 1/1,000th, or brought it down to 1/1,000th of what it should be. Now, I bring this up because Brent Finster called me, and I'm up looking at a problem over the last 2 days in State Line, Nevada, where they were complaining that their portables, literally that are a block from the radio site, can't use their radios. I was very surprised to hear, I had asked them if they had done what we call an effective sensitivity test, and basically what that does is gives us the ability to determine how much the outside is contributing to interference on the radio network. So in other words, we test the radio, we check to make sure, first of all, that it's working properly to spec, and then what we do is we insert a signal into it with a T so that we can then hook up the antennas and get a reference from no antennas to antennas on the system of how much interference we're experiencing. We did this in State Line and came up with 32 dB of interference. So to picture that, 30 dB is 1/1,000th, 32 dB, 33 dB would be like 2 times that much, so, or 2 times more, so it would be like 1/2,000th. That was the interference level we had there. Basically, the site was dead. You might as well have turned that radio off. We started doing some other checking on, they have a voting system, right? Multiple sites have receivers. Nothing was getting voted at downtown State Line, even if you were sitting there with the portable. So we now determine, okay, we have this interference. Now the next thing we do is we take a spectrum analyzer and we look at that antenna and we try to get a signature. Well, the signature we got was signal booster noise. It's pretty, you can tell what that is. And they're VHF, it's a little bit different in each band and depending on the frequencies. But once we establish what we've got going on, we can identify it. We eliminated 4 signal boosters in the last 2 days, and we still have 11 dB of signal booster interference. We couldn't get to the other signal booster. Now, the reason I want to bring this up is because the signal booster that was causing the major problem was installed under Fire Code 2019, and the licensee had no idea it was there. So we end up, now finding this stuff on the ground gets to be a real trick, okay? Because we're up high, we're looking at antennas that are up on top of a casino that's 200 foot tall, looking over beautiful Lake Tahoe. You couldn't find a better place to work. But we see the noise, but when we get back on the ground, right, get our test equipment on the ground, we don't see it anymore. So this becomes a real challenge. And we're up there with beams looking for it, and we kind of got an idea, okay, we know it's to the east of us, and we get in the car, put on an antenna on the car, omnidirectional, and VHF running around with the VHF beam. If you've ever seen the pretty good size antenna, right? You're not going to be holding that out the window. But we start cruising around, and I actually have pictures. I'm not going to share that today, but we find, oh, here's a smoking gun. Not only are we seeing the downlink signal noise, or the uplink signal noise outside the building, we're actually seeing downlink signal noise that's leaking out of the building. And so we find it, and it's at a Bally's casino, and of course we're running around the building, we're getting under the antenna, we can physically see it, but we want to make sure, right, before we go disturb the people in the building, you know, which is potentially a $100,000 fine for these people, right? That, hey, we know what's going on, and we did confirm it. So it ended up, we went into the building, they were really super nice. The guys identified them as the Douglas County Sheriff's Office Communications Division, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. They were really nice. They got us immediately to the building superintendent, I guess you could say, the engineer for the building. The building superintendent, he said, I've been here for 4 years. I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean a signal booster? What does that look like? So we ended up having to start making phone calls around Nevada. We got a hold of Sierra Electronics, other folks. And Sierra Electronics says, we believe that the signal booster is on the second floor in that casino. Now the casino's changed hands 3 times. The person, the superintendent, is still, okay, it's on the second floor. Wow. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we know we can see the antenna. Okay, so we take them up to the roof. Here's the antenna. Here's where it goes into the building. Where does this end up? Just to put this in perspective, it took us about 3.5 hours to find that booster. And where it was in a closet that was about, you know, probably the size of an equipment room behind the business center where people go to make copies in the building on floor 1. Okay, so, or on what they call their main floor. So we got up there, and the funny thing is, we got one of the guys, younger guys, opens up the cabinet, and he goes, man, this thing smells like it's burning up. And he turned the power off, and you know, I get up there with the test equipment, I said, well, it's done, it's not gonna come back on. And he looks at me like, why is it going to come back on? I said, because what you were smelling was the capacitors that have burned up and dried up, and the power supply's never going to restart again. He plugs it back in and it won't come on. I said, okay, well, we fixed the problem for sure, right? It's not coming back on. So we went up to the roof. We had taken signal readings on the roof. We went up to the roof and determined that, yes, we have found a major culprit here. No, it's all gone. Now, the antenna on this thing was pointed at a site that was up on a 10,000-foot mountaintop, which kind of covered everything. So it was desensing that site, but we couldn't get up to that site because of the snow that's still up there. We went back down. We found 2 of them, actually. We found one in the building where the radio system is. Where the repeater is, there was a signal booster in that building. It was like, why is this here? And we're talking $60,000 worth of filters, VHF filters on these things. Why is it here? Boom, it shut off. You don't even need this here. The second one was in Bally's. Why is it here? It's literally 400 foot from the site. Doesn't need to be there. We get all that done. This is 4:30 yesterday afternoon. We still have, I mean, a lot less. We've dropped the interference by 20 dB now, but we still have interference, and I could see another signature of another signal booster out there. but it's 4:30, and I told them, well, I would love to stay, but I'm due for this appointment. So Brent Finster calls me this morning and says this to me. He said, if you would share to the group what I would like, because we talked about the FCC rules, who's responsible for signal boosters. They feel at the radio division that they're going to have to get their legal people involved. And their legal people are going to have to go to the fire people and say, you put one of these on, we're coming after you. Because right now what's going on up there is the radio shop licensee being totally bypassed. Now, what probably should happen in Douglas County with their existing frequency splits is they should be using voting receivers. And they're very willing to do that. In fact, they've actually went in and put in a separate repeater for State Line that wirelines back all the way into Minden, Nevada, that's off the frequencies that are their normal frequencies. But the problem is not that the frequencies that they have are bad. The problem is that people have been using signal boosters improperly. Number one, illegally, and number two, for the wrong reason. Now, like I said, this is where people hate me. Some people love me, some people hate me. I used to sit on an FPA 1225. The fire code does not have the authority to authorize the use of a signal booster unless that person is the licensee. So anyway, when we talk about defending the spectrum, this is a program that is being done in conjunction with help from the FCC enforcement. They've come to us as a manufacturer. They've come to several manufacturers, actually. And Comba was one that says, you know, we sell a lot of these things, and our service guys get all kinds of whacked out questions. Maybe we need to do a little bit more, right, about getting the word out. What's legal, what's not, when to use it, when not to. So, you know, I mean, people say, well, why did they hire you? You're going to drop sales. And I'm telling them, no, I'm not dropping sales, actually, because people are now coming to us to use them the proper way. But what I am trying to do is to make sure that any component that has a Comba name on it is being used properly for the proper reason, with the proper permission from the licensee and all the pieces that need to go along with that. So we have an 8-hour presentation. I'm not doing that here. What I'm doing here today is to talk about, in 1 hour, what that presentation is. There's no charge to any HJ or any licensee. We're doing it in Florida. We're doing it all over the United States. We're going to be doing one in Phoenix here shortly. We need this needs to stop, okay? Because at the end of the day, if we don't stop it, it's not a political thing. People say, well, you're ticking off this guy or you're ticking off that guy. This isn't political. This mathematically cannot work. What's in the fire code cannot work. It will blow up radio systems. There's no other way to say it. The eventuality is it will take down systems. You got Mike Proscia in here from City of San Francisco. He's seen it. Nate Hinkle from Sac County is now in Collier County. He's seen all kinds of issues there. Brent Finster, we all know him and love him. He's up in Douglas County and he's fighting the same thing. The problem is what's happening is people are waking up and they're going, wow, our radio systems don't work anymore. And they're spending, well, I've been told in Santa Clara County about $750,000 a year of their own money to troubleshoot this stuff. So this is not good for the industry as a whole. So I went a little bit off track because one of the things that I hear all the time is, well, this isn't really going on. This is all theoretical. No, it quit being theoretical in 2019 when the FCC actually wrote the public notice, again, reminding everybody of the FCC rules. Because we were seeing this problem in 2018. Today, it's literally, and I'm not exaggerating, a daily occurrence, okay? Somewhere in the United States, somebody is fighting a signal booster interference problem. Okay, so when we talk about this program that we do, and it takes about 5 hours, but usually we get a lot of questions, so we try to put it into an 8-hour deal. We talk about, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this stuff today, but not at the length that we're going to talk about it in the actual course. And we've done this in Minnesota. Like I said, we're doing it all over the U.S. And I'm trying to get the word to licensees and AHJs. you know, where are we today? We talk a little bit about the NFPA and IFC codes, signal boosters and ERCs and ERCs. One of the things that's really starting to irritate me personally a little bit is they keep changing the names, right? We went from ERCs to ERCs. The FCC doesn't allow any of that. FCC allows one thing, signal boosters. That's it, not BDAs. So I've actually been told by a fire code official in Florida, well, BDAs aren't signal boosters. Well, I said, okay, then the FCC doesn't allow for BDAs, so they're straight up illegal. You can't use them at all. And they said, well, the fire code says we can. I said, well, even the FCC talks in their narrative about the fire code can say whatever it wants. Here's the legality of what has to happen. And I may actually talk a little bit about that here. The licensee's authority and obligation, right? Licensees are the only party, period, lock, stock, and barrel, that can authorize the use of a signal booster, and the licensee must maintain reasonable control. What's reasonable control? Well, I just did a presentation with the FCC at IWCE. Can you shut every signal booster down that you have on your network within 4 hours? Okay? So if you've got 1 or 2, that means you can drive out to them. If you've got 400 of them, you better have another way. You know, whether it's you're using your Plectron paging system, and I know that's probably old school for a lot of you, but whatever you're using to page your fire department, force the people who are buying them to put those on their signal boosters so that you can shut them down from the console. I mean, that's legal. That's the law, the federal law. Third-party responsibility. That is for the people that are requesting a signal booster. So if the fire code official requests a signal booster and that fire code official doesn't have their name on the license, they have to get express written consent. And by express, it means you are acting on behalf of the FCC. You are delivering a document that has a call sign, frequencies available, or frequencies to amplify, and any of your current rules that you've developed as the licensee to protect your radio network. That's what the licensee's there to do. And I know a lot of licensees. I had one yesterday. They had the lady, young lady that runs the system in Douglas County say, I used to like you. So like I said, people love me or hate me, although we have a good relationship. But she understands I'm trying to help her, but the help is hard to do. We talk in this about a plan check for licensees, right? What should you look for? I'm going to tell you straight up, I do plan check for Napa County and some of the others. 90% of all submissions for signal boosters are 100% incomplete, 100% guesses. They don't have any kind of reality in them. And there's Ken Bernard, he's laughing in the background, but he does the same thing. He knows exactly what I'm saying. The people who are installing these things don't know anything about your radio network. Okay, and then Lark Hadley from the FCC was supposed to be here today due to a scheduling conflict, or he was going to be with us via Zoom. Due to a scheduling conflict, we're going to have to bring him in. We're trying to confirm June, but he's going to talk about the FCC complaint portal. The reason I'm bringing that up now is that the amount of complaints is so high that the FCC no longer wants it sent directly to enforcement. They don't have the people. They got 35 people in enforcement. They now have a portal that's nationwide that they want you to submit if you've found a booster that is not authorized, that whether it's causing interference or not, you are to report it to the FCC. So they are getting serious. I can tell you, let me see how I can say this, that the FCC has 2 main goals this year. Number 1, to clean up pirate broadcasting, and number 2, to clean up BDA interference. That's kind of been their marching orders. So they're serious about doing this. And I would highly recommend that licensees take this seriously, because you will wake up one morning and go, oh crap, my system isn't, I mean, Roseville's had that experience, I think. My system isn't working. And it's because of stuff that you don't know that's going on. And unfortunately, you got to kind of step in and make sure that people know who's the boss here. Okay, so this is my life. I put this little video up. I'm trying to keep things a little bit light, but let's see.
He's not like other kids.
What do you mean?
Yesterday, I left him alone for a minute, and he disassembled the TV, our clock, and the stereo.
That's perfectly normal. Kids take things apart.
Oh. The part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh dear.
Is that bad?
Normally I'd want to run an EEG on him, but the machine isn't working. It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the knack.
The knack?
The knack. It's a rare condition characterized by an extreme intuition about all things mechanical and electrical and utter social ineptitude.
Can he lead a normal life?
No. He'll be an engineer.
Okay. So I was given that clip. I was given that clip about 20 years ago, and I still love using it because, you know, while I'm the geek that's been doing the numbers, how many of you here, I'm just curious, how many of you were here during rebanding at 800 megs? Okay, so all of you knew what did that cost? Anybody remember what that cost to Sprint was eventually? $5 billion, okay, was the total cost of that effort. That effort was called out by myself and others before it happened that this was going to happen. Now, we didn't know it was going to be a $5 billion effort, right, that it was going to cost $5 billion, but we knew that we couldn't continue to do what was being done by Nextel and operate. And I was on the commercial side of the SMR spectrum. We had a lot of public safety users on our system, but I ran the largest SMR operation prior to Nextel. And I actually went to Washington, D.C. to talk about this. We said, listen, they can't keep doing what they're doing in licensing. And the FCC's comment to me was, well, you know, if they're licensing improperly, you know, we'll pull back their licenses. All you have to do is catch it, right? So basically now what they're saying is that, wow, Nextel's submitting 2,000 licenses a day, and as long as you can catch the ones that are incorrectly engineered, you know, we'll fix it. Well, the fix was that they burdened public safety. How many people got rich out of the rebanding? How many people here on the public safety side got rich out of that? Very few people. How many pulled their hair out trying to figure out how they were going to run multiple systems at a time, change radios, and do that sort of thing because of what happened there? So there's lots of people that made lots of money, but it wasn't the public safety community that really got anything out of it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if we don't get the BDA thing under control, we're going to be in the same boat. However, we're not going to have a finger to point at, right? They had Sprint, they had Nextel. They said, it's your problem. There's too many players right now playing in here. Everybody and their brother has now become a radio engineer, right? If I can put in a fire alarm system, I am now a radio engineer. If I can afford to spend $3,000 on a Regal spectrum analyzer, I'm a radio engineer. And if you don't believe me, there are companies that sell signal boosters that will tell you that. So that's where we're at right now. So where are we today? Okay. Well, some of you might recognize that gentleman. That's Mr. Lark Hadley. He is the Director of Enforcement for the Federal Communications Commission District 3. He also, and I'm not sure if he's still acting, but he's the National Director for FCC Enforcement. He also wears an LA County Sheriff's uniform. And he doesn't like radio communications failures. He's not happy with those. I wonder why, you know? And frankly, like he's told me, you don't want me showing up. Either way, you don't want me to show up. And he made the comment one day on a phone call that I don't carry a 2x4, I drive a bulldozer. And he said, when we show up, it's not fun. So you guys need to fix this. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to fix it before the FCC does, but the FCC is now getting more and more involved. Mind you, the FCC put out a public notice in 2019 about this, and still 90% of all signal boosters in operation are running illegally, okay? So just kind of think about that. So the first thing is all of us want our first responders to be able to work, their radios to work wherever they work. Now guys like Ruck and myself, when I have my other hat on, are all about making sure that the systems are designed right. And yeah, occasionally we make a mistake, but hey, we can go back and fix it, and that's what we do, right? We want to make sure that radio systems work. We don't want variables put into the equation that we don't know about, right? If I'm doing signal booster, for instance, Napa County, I'm working on one right now with them. I'm looking at a design that's complete junk. It was in a building. I got the state fire marshal saying, I want to bring in every VHF channel in the state. And I got to tell him, sorry, you can't do that. Now, working for Napa, all I can do is try to protect Napa's interest, right? And say, all right, guys, here's the deal. If you put this in and you cause interference, and I would suggest Napa will say, I'm going to report it to the FCC immediately because it has gotten that bad. But we're going to have a conference call and try to explain why you don't do simplex talk-around channels on a signal booster. And I know that some of you don't know why, but that is a very, very big no-no, and it goes on all the time. Oh, we want the fireground simplex channel on the signal booster. Okay, we can't do anything with that. I mean, the only thing we do is build an oscillator. It's like taking the microphone and sticking it up to the speaker until it howls, except the only difference is you don't hear the howling. It just wipes out your radio network. We do not want the FCC to come in and troubleshoot signal booster interference, okay? The last time they did that, they wrote a $100,000 notice of violation, and I hear tale that they're putting together a mechanism to be able to write $25,000 fines immediately to any building owner that has a signal booster that doesn't have licensee authorization, okay? We really don't want that. We really like to clean it up before it happens. But the unfortunate part is guys like Mike Goki over in Santa Clara and Michael here and Brent Finster are having to spend way too much money and way too much time, and they're not funded to do that. Now, part of this is literally it should have been funded, licensees should have been funded, but the fire code did not bring one licensee in, ever. In IFC or NFPA, there's not one licensee that sat on either one of those boards, with the exception of me, and I did it from the commercial side. Okay, so we have the NFPA, we have the IFC. NFPA 1225 and IFC all speak to in-building communications. Now, there's folks, Chief Purdue, one of them, that will tell me that, well, the fire code doesn't require that you put in a signal booster if you don't have coverage. And okay, it requires that you put in an amplification system. Oh no, the fire code official can say that they don't want to do that. I said, well, unless the fire code official is the licensee, they don't have any say. I mean, it's kind of like, no, the licensee is the only one that can make the determination. So, but I did say this much, I sat in front of probably 150 fire people in North Carolina, and I asked them, I said, how many of you, tell me, what do you deal with, if you go in a building and it doesn't have radio coverage, what do you do? Well, you put in a signal booster. Well, that's against federal law. You can't do that. But that's the way it's being enforced. So my comment to all of the excuses is that 99% of the time it's being enforced. If we don't have coverage, we put in a signal booster, and the FCC says over 95% of all signal boosters are running illegally because they're not authorized by the licensee. Okay, great, that's cool. Or that's the estimate anyway. My presentation that I'm doing, the 8-hour presentation, it doesn't have anything to do with 2-hour survivability, doesn't have anything to do with, how you're going to run your cables and your ceiling. It has to do with compliance with Part 90, which in IFC 510 specifically calls out compliance with 90.219. Specifically calls that rule out, and it's never enforced. Never enforced. Well, I won't say never. I shouldn't say, I hate to use terms never. It's not enforced very often. All police, fire, EMS, and narrowband LMR services fall under Part 90. And this rule is a Part 90 rule. Now, I have been informed of something lately, and I just realized that Jim Lencioni, or I guess it would be Jim, that some of these operators have licensed VHF paging channels for their radio systems. Is that what they've done in Placer? Is that They have a VHF paging block. I believe that falls under Part 22. However, Part 22 also has the same requirement. Put it this way. You talk to these in-building signal booster guys, the ones that have been in for a long time, or DAS guys, and they will tell you straight up. We said, well, what do you do for AT&T? Oh, we go and get written permission from AT&T. We get written permission if we're going to use a signal booster from Verizon, a Part 22 booster. They don't dare pull the stunts on the carriers that they're pulling on the public safety community right now. So just for whatever that's worth. The people who are doing this, well, actually many of the big integrators have kind of left the marketplace. The ones that really knew their stuff, you know, they're not making any money doing this, so they've kind of left. And so now what you've got is a lot of what I would call garage operators in the market. You know, they see, oh, wow, I can go put in a signal booster. In fact, we had situations in Southern California where people are hanging signal boosters on the wall in known good working buildings, charging users $60,000, $80,000, call the fire department in, the fire department approves the building, and it didn't need a signal booster, and the signal booster was never hooked up to anything to begin with. So they just see it as a cash cow opportunity. So that's going on also, not really good. Okay, so a couple quick things here, because everybody looks at Greg and says he hates signal boosters. Why does a guy who hates signal boosters work for a signal booster manufacturer? I don't hate signal booster. I'm going to use the Jack Daniel line. If the signal booster is the right solution, I want you to use Comba equipment. Now, I really don't care. I mean, obviously, they pay my bills, so yes, I would like you to use Comba, but if you're VHF, we don't build a product for that. So, signal boosters are an integral part of seamless coverage. There's not a doubt that they're used, but right now I would say that probably 60% of the installs are not necessary because they're not going to the licensee and looking at what the licensee wants to do. Signal boosters do work very well when they're used properly. We've proven that. I've been dealing with signal boosters since the 1990s when I ran Pacific Wireless, which before, like I said, or when we were still analog, we were the largest operation SMR in the United States. We tested all kinds of signal boosters. That's me, I'm the geek. I go out and figure all this out. I also do the numbers though. See, I apply the theory to the practicality, and we've proven the theory works with the practicality in this. So when somebody says, well, this isn't gonna happen, yeah, it's gonna happen. We already see it now. And we actually tested it back in 2003, long before the fire code picked this up. Signal boosters have been used since the late 80s, okay? That I think was when the SB1 came out by TXRX, and really had very few problems. You might hear something once a year, not even that. Hey, we had a problem with the signal booster. The antenna broke off, it started oscillating, something, right? But up until just about 7 years ago, we never heard anything. Today, it's a daily occurrence. And it's simply because signal boosters are being used where they shouldn't be used. The problem comes in when signal boosters are used without coordination with the licensee, okay? That's it. Simple, end of story, breakdown. If the licensee doesn't know about it, and I will tell you that probably across the United States, there are a handful of fire people that are the licensee. LA County, for instance. But what's really interesting about LA County, and I was just talking to Ken about that this morning, is that they're so strict on signal boosters that one rarely goes in. So it's amazing when the licensee is the fire department, all the rules and checks and valves that are put in if you are the licensee, because they understand what their responsibility is. But it's kind of like me going to you and saying, it's fine to go drunk driving as long as you're in my city, and the state saying, no, we have a .08 rule. Oh, no, you can ignore that. That's what's going on in the signal booster rule right now, is that, we have another document that says this versus what the FCC rules say. Okay, so the ecosystem, right now, this is kind of what it looks like. You got the wireless industry, you got AHJ and code and ordinances, and you got the building owners. And they're all working together to put in a device that the only party that can authorize is this guy over here, and he's left out 90% of the time. This is what it needs to look like. And it needs to look like that from day one. So if somebody is going to build a building and pull a permit to put a signal booster, the first place it goes is to the licensee. And the licensee, part of what we're doing in our training, is to give the licensees the tools to be able to say, this looks like a good design, and send it back. And, and if you want to charge for it, go for it. I think you should. It's $1,200 to do plan check. And if it fails, okay, we give you one chance. But I'll tell you that 90% of the information that you as a licensee need to know as to if you're going to allow the use of this device is never in those designs, because it's all a game. It's all a bunch of pictures to sell a product to a building owner that has no authority, to even a fire code official that has, in many cases, no authority to authorize the use. So where are we today? Okay. We got licensees, no more end runs, right? We have some licensees that are literally saying, we do not allow signal boosters, put one in the market, and watch how fast I have the FCC out here. We have some licensees that are saying, we have not developed a policy. Our policy is to build our radio network first, which is the FCC rule, right? The FCC rules say, when your radio network is developed, you can use signal boosters under certain circumstances. Not that, I walk in a building and I don't have coverage, therefore I'm going to have the building owner put in a signal booster. Now you're going to have the building owner pay for it, but there's no the federal law is very specific on that, and we go into that in pretty much detail. Where are we today? Licensees are pushing back. They're just saying, hey, we can't deal with this anymore. It's costing us too much money and we're not funded. Okay, many licensees are just saying no to signal boosters, right? Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, but I can understand why it's happening. Because the taste in the mouth is that signal boosters cause problems, and unfortunately, a lot of times they do, but it's really because they're not being used properly. Okay, if we don't respond in a positive fashion, the FCC, remember, signal boosters are what I would call an exception rule, which was given to the licensees so that in the event that my city grows and I move out there and I don't have good radio coverage there, I can use a signal booster without going through licensing as a temporary solution to cover, or it could be permanent, to cover a radio hole, right? To get that 30 dB, get that 20 dB more we want, right? A licensee can do that. But a licensee cannot extend the coverage of the radio site. There's a whole bunch of rules that are used that are completely overlooked when the fire code doesn't say anything other than it will be compliant with 90.219, but in order to be compliant with 90.219, the first place it has to go is the licensee, because they're the only ones that can authorize. Okay, so Comba's position, we're listening. Right, I'm working with different licensees. We're talking about potentially building SDRs that could be little voting receivers, all kinds of little things, right? Make it better. Make a better mousetrap. So the industry, there are people in the industry that are trying to build the better mousetrap, Comba being one of them. Now, that means that I listen, a licensee calls me up and says, hey, we want all of our BDAs in our market to have P25 decode, and we have to activate them with a key just like we do a portable. Okay, I'm 100% good with that. But you guys got to push that agenda, because right now you've got people pushing an agenda that says put a red box in every building and blow up your radio network. That's the agenda that's being pushed right now. Okay, so here's the licensee's position. I've actually taken some letters that have gone to the FCC and to other folks, and I don't expect you to read these but those on this chain are all savvy and aware of the issues we're facing. However, I've seen more and more business models of certain integrators that rely on the licensees not to be informed. Okay? Manufacturer here from Comba, representing Comba, I want you to be informed. And if it means that you don't use a booster, it's not the right solution, I'm all good with that. But I want everybody who's a licensee to understand what it means to use a signal booster. I was told a long time ago, the signal booster guys know what they're doing. Well, no, they don't, right? They're just hanging a box on a wall. And number two, without the licensee's permission, it shouldn't be going anywhere. Okay, so that came out of one market. I found that for the most part, licensees are unaware of the situations and what they can do about it. That's another thing that we do try to cover, right? As a licensee, what rights do you have? Well, I'll tell you what, you have all the rights. You have all the authority. You can say no. You can say no, you don't even have to give an excuse, and the FCC will back you up on that. And you don't want one of those fines running around. This is another comment. It said, and I covered up this is a covered up name, so people probably may know who that is, but is driven by fire marshals and contractors, or at least anything they address seems to be based on that. MTUG is a corporate joke run by Motorola. So now, I will say MTUG right now is actually, we're starting to see stuff coming out of MTUG that is saying, hey guys, watch what's going on with the signal booster. Obviously, Motorola doesn't want this either because it makes their networks look bad when these things fail. Okay, and then I'm sure you can figure out, we don't have the resources to be spending time playing whack-a-mole with BDA interference in Sacramento, Seattle, Southern California, and other places. That came out of one of the FCC guys. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so terms defined. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch here. I'm going to go over the FCC rules real quick. Okay, they define a signal booster in the rule. It's 90.219. Any of you can type in Google, FCC, 90.219. It takes you to Cornell University. You can look at the rule right there. So basically, the signal booster is what everybody calls a BDA. It's the only Part 90. Well, first of all, any Part 90 device has to be authorized by the licensee. I don't care what it is. But signal boosters actually have to be more than authorized. That has to be written, and it has to be a written express consent for everyone that goes in. And the licensee needs to keep track of them, and the licensee needs to be able to shut them down. Okay, so those are kind of the 4 rules that have to happen. PLMR licensees for stations operating on assigned channels higher than 150 megs. Okay, the FCC, just so you know, low band signal boosters, those have to be licensed. Those are not legal to be used. So if you're doing something for the CHP because you got somebody on the fire side saying we want low band, they're completely illegal to be used under 90.219 and have to be licensed as a base station. So coordinated and licensed and all that stuff. So anything above 150 megs, you can use this rule. The service band for which they're authorized as needed, it has to stay within your service contour. How many fire people in here know what the service contour is? Does the IFC or an NFPA talk about service contour? All it does is point to 90.219, but nobody ever opens the book and reads 90.219. You cannot use a signal booster to increase your coverage area, and it happens quite a bit, believe it or not, in VHF. PLMRS licensee may also consent to the operation. So the licensee, you can consent to me, to a building owner, to whoever, and you have to hand me a document, you know. And frankly, it would be like me using radios on your network, right? I mean, I have radios programmed on various different radio networks. Or like when I went up to Douglas County, you know, oh, here's our frequencies, you can program them up. I have to get their permission, right? It's illegal for me to pop up on the network and start making noise without letting them know, okay? Now, typically that's done verbally. We'll talk with the licensee, say, hey, is this okay? They're gonna say yes or no. If you're in the city of Los Angeles, and I'm gonna show you this, they'll say no, but they've got so many problems they don't know what to do with right now because of this. So across their service contour applicable frequencies, you must maintain a reasonable level of control. What does that mean? Can you shut them off? That's basically it. Now you can go farther. As a licensee, you can go farther than that. You know, maybe I want online, but then you've got security issues and all of that, where turning them off could be simple as, like I said, putting a base station or a mobile at the site, and then you send a particular code, and all the good manufacturers are going to give you a relay contact that you can shut it off, right? You can, boom, shut it off just by a closure. Can the authorizing licensee shut down the signal booster? That's really reasonable control. Now, again, you can make it as big as you want, but at the end of the day, all the FCC is asking is if they come up to you or another licensee comes up to you or you have a problem on your own network, can you shut it off? Can you shut off the signal booster? Remember, signal boosters are 5-watt simulcast transmitters. That's what they are. They're no different than taking a two-way radio, programming the same input and output frequency, and signal comes in, 5-watt transmitter comes out, and boom, it blurts it out over the air. There's no DPL, there's no PL. These things are dumb devices, right? Now, that's again, part of making a smarter booster would be maybe making a booster that decodes PL, decodes DPL, decodes NAC, maybe looks at unit ID. But again, this isn't being driven by the licensees, this is being driven by a whole group of people that just want to put red boxes on a wall. Okay, non-licensees seeking to operate signal boosters must obtain express consent of the licensees. The consent must be maintained in recordable format and presented to the FCC or other licensee upon request. So, you have to give that license from your licensee. Now, the FCC in their public notice, which I'm not going to go over, again, went and reiterated that. Consent is not required for incidental third party. We can talk a little bit about that, but that's in the course. Okay, PLMRS licensees, right? If you read the fire code, it says, oh, the building owner is responsible. FCC does not give the building owner the authorization to be responsible or anything else. That falls on the licensee only. If they got a problem, they can say at any time, shut it down, okay? And you can read this part of the rule which says that you can even call the FCC for assistance, but you better have authorized it and you better have done the right stuff before you call the FCC for assistance, or else they're going to start writing some pretty serious fines. Probably not to the licensees, because the licensees are going to turn around and say, hey, we didn't authorize this. So, deployment rules, I'm not going to go into those here. Okay, signal boosters, again, deployment rules. These are maximum amount of output power, different rules. None of these are really ever enforced. We find, in fact, Ken just had one. He was just showing in the city of San Francisco that's 40 dB worse than what the rules, and these are going in all the time. Signal booster pass bands, it's got all kinds of rules that the licensee has to follow. And, okay, so, okay, we have to put, this is not a consumer device, on the box, it even says. You can't install this. Now, one quick thing I want to bring up here. People ask, what is a qualified installer? When you, licensees in the room, who do you call to put another base station on your radio network? How do you do that? You go out to bid, write an RFP. Do you let anybody put radio base stations on your radio network? Do you let somebody you've never heard of, has no radio experience, do you say, oh, fine, you can go set up a simulcast base station on my radio network? Probably not. I would say that there's not a licensee in this room. So, qualified installer is who the licensee says is qualified. It's not who the fire code says. It's not who's the other one that's the company now that's doing certification. NICET, right? And I wrote some of that test. Okay, you can accept NICET certification. I'm not saying don't, but the licensee actually actively should be looking at who's installing these, not turning their heads and saying, oh, well, we'll just let them put it on the network because that's going to bite you in the butt. Okay, third party responsibility. Now, this is an interesting thing. Who's the third party? Under the FCC rules, who's the third party? Anybody who's asking for permission to use a signal booster. So in the fire code, if a decision has been made to request a signal booster, who is responsible for getting that permission? What? The installer, okay. What? Building owner, okay. Who else? Well, licensee is the one who gives permission. So who would be the other third party? What? The requester. Right. So who's the requester in the fire code? What? It's the people who are given the permit. If they're following the fire code, the requester is the people who are saying, okay, you can use it, right? I mean, in other words, and it says even in the fire code itself that they're supposed to send you a package, right? part of the deal. There's supposed to be a package, a written package given to the installer outlining all the rules. That, at a minimum, should have the contact person of the licensee in there, or better yet, should have the licensee's written permission for preliminary work on the job. I mean, these things should not even be getting designed. I see designs, this one in Napa right now I'm dealing with, it was designed by the architect. They have no clue what the city of Napa, what the county of Napa, what frequencies they use. Woodland, the jail in Woodland, they put one, the architect put it in the build for the new jail and courthouse in Woodland. They put an 800 meg system in there. Woodland is a VHF operation, okay? This is the kind of stuff that goes on all the time. The wrong people are involved, and it's ending up killing everybody. Okay, so plan checks for licensees, and we go over that. And again, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to try to go. You know, what's a good heat map? Is that good? Does it have a good uplink analysis? That's the problem. 90% of the time, there's no uplink analysis. Did the designer tell you what their proposed gain is going to be on this BDA? No, they never do that. What they do is they come in and they turn up the volume until it works. And then it takes down your radio network. Okay, so I'm about out of time. What I am going to say is that any licensee, AHJ, whoever wants to do the program, Ken may be involved. I'm doing some stuff with Ken probably up up north in Reno area. We're trying to get this word out because the FCC is getting to a point of upset. We don't want them there. We don't want them on fire. But more importantly, we want your radio networks to work, right? I don't want to get these calls where I am out looking for descents where now the police officers can't use their radios because somebody put in a signal booster. That is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen. We actually are killing our own radio networks under the auspices of the fire code. And I'm going, how do we do this? How do we stop that? This is another one, real interesting one, right? We had a line of sight through a land. You can't do a donor antenna through land, but again, people try it. Okay, so another quick thing. When we talk about design, and this is an impact kind of statement, a normal noise floor is about minus 131, minus 130 at a good 800 meg site. If the signal booster increases it by 6 dB, it reduces the coverage by 50%. If the signal booster increases it by 18 dB, it's 80%. If it's 20 dB, it turns it to basically reduces it by 90%. 30 dB reduces it by 99.99%. Okay, these are the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis right now. A lot of this stuff, again, and then I'm just wanting to go over some fine points of the stuff that we're covering. Again, another thing, right? Putting signal boosters in buildings right next door to each other. No, the rules were written around 1,200 foot separation of signal boosters. The rules were written around 2 miles away from a radio site at 800 megs. I go into areas often, well, the one I was just dealing with, where you've got them in 4 casinos. No, you don't do that. That doesn't make technical sense, and that's why we're going to end up having to probably rip them all out. This is a situation. I don't know if we'll be able to hear the audio. We'll give it a try.
128, sorry, it's static. Can I?
Another.
Sorry, you're still sketchy.
Scratchy. Okay, this is what they're getting. Okay, she's not hearing.
Adam 6110, was there another unit?
Was there another unit? She's getting heterodyne. She didn't hear the send others. Fortunately, there was another one. Anyway, what this was back in 2020, right? We had little incidents. We had a police officer in this parking lot right here. He couldn't use his radio. They blamed it on the signal booster here. It wasn't the signal booster here. It was an interaction between those 2 signal boosters. You could turn that one off, you could turn that one off, and you were fine out in the parking lot. Either one off, but when they were both on, this whole area was trashed out here. Now, they said, well, it's the installer's problem. Well, the installer, I hate to say it, if he's designing this one, doesn't know there's one here, he doesn't know to design for this. If they don't check in the parking lot, right? How often does somebody go out and check in the parking lot? I mean, I know that there are like the Steve Ronics of the world that make you do all of this stuff, but you know, How often does people go out here and check in the parking lot? They had to operate a problem here, out here on the street because of that. Now, I will tell you that they don't allow signal boosters in this town anymore. They're all off, which is rightfully so. The city fire department didn't even know they were here. It was authorized as part of a building permit. So the fire department didn't even know. You had the building people who didn't have a clue about what they were doing. And you had actually the people who did this one and this one, Ken might recognize that. We know those people. The people who did that one, we don't know. So we don't know who did it. All we know is it occurred and it took down the radio network. And that's one, I mean, when we talk about signal booster interference, it ends up being essentially, and I'm running out of time, it presents itself in one of three ways. Number one, if you're lucky, they turn it on and boom, it takes down the radio network and they go, oh crap, we got a problem, and they go find it. And it gets resolved in a day and they go pull the signal booster. Sometimes you get the licensee takes a big pair of bolt cutters and cuts apart the $10,000 booster and says, if you ever turn this on again, I'm gonna, we're gonna have a problem. Okay, that's the lucky one. The next one that typically happens is we raise the noise floor 6 or 8 dB. That's kind of what happened in Tahoe, right? Except it was even worse, where you wake up one morning and you say, I'm out on the Delta, right? The weather gets crappy, nobody's out on the Delta. The next spring you got boats out on the Delta, you got a sheriff's officer on the Delta. He steps off of his patrol boat onto another boat suspected of carrying drugs, and he can no longer use his portable. Well, gee, we've always had great portable coverage out there. Well, it happens to be that a signal booster was installed in October that took down the receiver site that covers that area, and nobody finds out about it for 6 months. Those become the real tough ones. That's what I'm dealing with, and frankly, that's the majority of what's happening right now, is the stuff that we're seeing there. Then the third one is when we start packing signal boosters, and when I say packing boosters, what I'm meaning is that we're putting multiple boosters in a small area. They may be perfectly quiet, and the only time they act up is when a portable is actually trying to make a call from the area that the signal boosters are in. So what ends up happening is the portable goes into that area, he keys up, it brings up 3 or 4 boosters, they start interacting with each other, and they end up with 3 or 4 versions of the same signal at the site at virtually the same level. And if it's P25, well, P25 even makes it worse because you don't hear anything. If it's analog, you end up hearing heterodynes and it drops in and out. So, it's 12:03, I'm sure it's lunchtime. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah?
One of the requirements is to register your signal boosters to the FCC.
Currently, go ahead so they can pick it up.
One of the requirements that you had displayed was to register. You must register your signal booster.
Currently, a Class B signal booster theoretically has to be registered on the FCC website. There's a big issue with that. Probably should be registered under the FRN of the licensee, but a lot of times they get put onto the FCC website, somebody creates their own FRN, and we never know where to find them. But any Class B booster is supposed to be registered.
How successful has that been? Like, would we be able to log on to the FCC, like research, okay, what signal boosters have been registered in our area?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying is the problem. If you knew the FRN, you could go in and have the licensee could pull up the FRN and said, which ones have we required registration on? The problem is that Class A boosters don't need to be registered. And a lot of times people use Class A boosters, and I don't want to go into it, it's very technical, but Class A boosters are not channelized boosters, and they don't cause less interference than Class B boosters. In fact, the majority of the problems that we see today are Class A boosters, which aren't registered. Go ahead.
And just a quick comment. Michael and I both work for the city, and we have about 400 BDAs installed in San Francisco, and we do annual inspections on these BDAs. And about, I don't know, Michael, what do you think? About 90% require some kind of intervention from our inspectors when we're there. So the people who are actually installing these, a lot of the times are not aware of a lot of the rules and regulations. And
Well,
that's a generous number. I think it's actually higher than that.
Well, and that's true. That's 100% true. The problem that we have, and I'll throw this one out there, and that I've noticed doing this, because I do talk with lots of licensees, and I go out and do a lot of troubleshooting. Up in Douglas County. Now, these guys know their radio stuff great, right? He comes in, he can plug into the bottom of that radio, tell me that radio is working perfectly. But when I say, do an effective sensitivity test, I want to know how much decent you have on your network. A lot of guys don't know how to do this anymore. The radio people are gone. So you don't have radio people that know how to, we got to insert an ISO-T and do all of these things to find out what the interference level is. Where they figure it out is that, oh crap, our radios aren't working anymore, which is way, way, way beyond the point you first started seeing interference. Now, there are companies like PCTEL that, are providing spectrum analyzers you can put at the site. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, yes, obnoxious signals you can always see with the spectrum analyzer. But, when we start to see noise floor rises, the easiest and most accurate way of doing that is an effective sensitivity test, because you're doing what you put in a signal into the radio, then you hook the antenna up, and then you have to increase that signal to be able to get the same quality, and then you can make that calculation. So when we start seeing small amounts of noise rise, there's not always you can't easily pick them up with a spectrum analyzer. I mean, in just going out there. Yesterday, I was just lucky. It was like, I'm sitting up there, I'm going, it's 30 dB. First of all, spectrum analyzer has about 10 dB noise figure, so I was just lucky. I hooked my antenna up and I go, oh, yeah, okay, and it just sits there. It's not a carrier going up and down, it's just two little blips right on frequency.
All right, last question.
As I was talking to LA Fire Department, right?
So
I decided, you know what? Let me go take a look and see what New York Fire Department does.
Yeah, they use.
And
ARCs.
it blew me away because their DAS systems are turned off.
Yes, they use ARCs.
They actually show up with a key. They have a whole process to turn the thing on.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're using TAC channels or
Well, they're
something.
using TAC channels.
Yeah.
They're actually using repeaters in the building.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a bad way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad way. However, the fire code is really, the problem is with New York, they see the fire department as the first responder. Most jurisdictions also look at their PD, right? If I got an active shooter running through a building, I want to make sure that my police officer can use his radio when he runs through that building. And he's not going to have time to go through this whole process of what you're saying there. Now, I mean, we have had discussions about turning them on and off based on dispatch, right, and geofencing. Okay, I'm dispatching somebody to this area. I'm going to activate the signal boosters here through dispatch. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad or good idea. I think all of these need to be talked about. But yes, that's correct. They use what they call ARCs, which is our auxiliary radio communication system. And frankly, there should be a lot of others that are doing VHF stuff that should be using voting receivers and only downlink only. But again, that doesn't meet the fire code. And there's a lot of things that have not been released to the market, I know from personal experience, because they look at the fire code and say, screw it, we're not going to do it. We're not going to invest and then fight Honeywell or fight whoever, trying to get in the fire code. This stuff, other than to say we want radio coverage in the building, that's all that belongs in the fire code. Any kind of prescriptive stuff, this is my opinion, so whatever it's worth, prescriptive stuff should be left to the licensee. You don't have coverage? Contact your licensee. Here's his phone number. Okay, but what's happening is building CTOs are being held up, so you're basically putting a gun to a building owner's head to actually commit a $100,000 federal violation. And they're doing it because they're sitting there going, well, if I don't get this building open, my liquidated damages are $100,000 a day, so I'll take that risk. The problem is not the $100,000 a day. The problem is that every one of these that's added to the network changes the environment of the radio network. And if the licensee doesn't understand what change has been made to their network, then like I said, it's 6 months later. They're calling somebody like me or Ruck or somebody and saying, hey, we have no more portable coverage. Help us, please help us, So, any others? I guess not. I don't want to hold you from lunch. I see it's out. So thank you for listening to me this morning. And like I said, any licensee, anybody on the HJ side who is interested, contact Ken Bernard, contact myself, contact Mr. Ruck. They can help. We can help you out and get you the training that licensees need to use these.
Thank you very much, Greg. Excellent stuff. Like he alluded to, we're going to have a meeting in July that's going to continue this conversation with the FCC in the room and part of that discussion as well. So thank you very much, Greg, for coming out and providing that education. So before we break for lunch real quick, we're going to do raffle prizes, but for those dialing in remotely, this will be the end of the meeting. We'll do raffle prizes and then head right into lunch. Thanks, everyone.